A string of vicious bank robberies grows more violent with every holdup, then ends in a deadly shootout. With a dangerous man on the run, police conduct an all-out search for a fugitive so desperate, he will stop at nothing to make his escape.
Two armed bank robbers hit a Seattle bank, taking over $150,000. But before they can escape, police confront them and the pair splits up. As authorities search block by block, they learn one was a career criminal with a long history of violence. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The suspect was smart and desperate to stay free. Agents chased him through the Caribbean and across cyberspace, determined to put an end to his career.
One of the FBI's primary responsibilities is investigating bank robberies. And they see more of these crimes in Seattle than just about any other place in the country. The FBI office there investigates every bank robbery in the state of Washington. Special Agent Mike Adams runs Seattle's robbery division.
Over the last 5 or 6 years, we've averaged 300 bank robberies a year, primarily here in the Seattle or King County area. Bank robberies are a big problem here in this area.
The FBI cites a high rate of drug addiction and the fact that Washington has a relatively large number of bank branches as reasons for this. The Seattle agents see two basic types of bank heists. Most are one-on-one robberies, when someone approaches a teller with a note and a quiet demand for cash.
Not necessarily a robber who cares to draw attention to him or herself by being extremely vocal or attempting to take over the banking operations.
The other kind of robbery is more rare and more dangerous. The takeover.
A takeover robbery is where we have one or more robbers who enter a bank and attempt to take over the banking operations through various means, either ordering people to the floor or ordering bank employees away from the teller counters. More often than not, in a takeover-style bank robbery, the bank robber or robbers are armed with firearms. So those are considered very violent as opposed to a one-on-one style bank robbery.
Agents note that whenever takeover bandits get away with it, they will usually rob again, becoming bolder and more violent with each new attempt. On May 17, 2000, one particularly vicious string of takeover-style robberies begins at a downtown Seattle bank.
Hurry up! All of it, all of it. I will shoot you right now, lady. I ain't playing with you. Get that.
Working quickly, they disappear in minutes with thousands of dollars in cash. A week later, thieves hit another area bank, brandishing bigger guns, intensifying their assault on unsuspecting patrons and employees. 2 weeks later, robbers strike again with even more aggression. Since takeover robberies are rare, agents believe the crimes were all perpetrated by the same bandits.
We did see bank robberies that did appear to be similar in nature in terms of the level of violence, in terms of large amounts of money. Certainly, a robbery of that nature is going to pique our attention because of the significant level of violence.
Yet each time, the robbers escape cleanly in stolen getaway cars, leaving no eyewitnesses who can ID the men. The FBI is facing a pair of seasoned criminals who grow more aggressive with each attack. Recognizing a pattern of behavior, authorities feel these violent robbers will turn deadly. 6 days later, on the morning of June 22nd, 2000, their worst fears are realized. Two men head down Aurora Avenue, then turn into the parking lot of Wells Fargo Bank. The people inside have no idea what's coming. The gunmen corral the customers and employees, but they miss one. The robbers are organized. One stands guard, while the other finds a teller who can access the vault.
I'm asking you, do you have the key to the vault?
Don't look at me. Get over there.
The manager connects with police emergency.
Stay on the line. All units, we've had a bank robbery at 120 in Aurora.
A dispatcher puts out an urgent call about armed robbers still inside the bank.
204 received.
Seattle officer Wesley Buxton responds.
It was a bank robbery in progress. That's a little bit of an unusual call. We usually get bank alarms as opposed to bank robbery in progress.
Buxton races to the bank.
I said hurry up. Yeah. Come on, here, fill it up. Hurry up.
Inside the vault, the thief takes all the cash his two backpacks can hold. The teller follows orders, hoping the gunman won't kill him.
No phone calls or nothing, you understand me? None of that.
Buxton kills his siren as he approaches the bank.
I was the first one on the scene. There was a motorcycle sitting out in front of the bank. I believe it was up on the sidewalk. You really couldn't see in the bank.
Following procedure, the officer finds cover and waits for backup. Officer Rick Sprecher arrives and gets into position. The bandits emerge, unaware of the officers. They cannot get the motorcycle started.
They sat there like they were frozen for a minute in time, I guess trying to figure out why the motorcycle wouldn't start. And then they jumped off the motorcycle and they started running away from it.
Then, one suspect trips.
I had my gun on him and told him to stay down.
Buxton stays with the first gunman. Officer Sprecher orders the second to stop. But the man disappears. Then Officer Buxton is suddenly faced with the unthinkable.
It seemed like slow motion. I've heard the tape recording of it and the shots were fired in quick succession. But at that time, it seemed like there were even maybe 1 or 2 seconds between the actual shots.
Sprecher returns fire, finally stopping the gunman. Officers contain one suspect. The other is gone.
Got an officer down! Officer down! I need backup!
Officer Sprecher's call brings an intense law enforcement response. Emergency medical technicians work to stabilize Officer Buxton, while Officer Sprecher quickly briefs detectives.
He got shot 6 times, but I unloaded on him. Guy's loose.
The man who shot the officer is dead.
Black jacket,
The hunt for the escaped suspect begins immediately.
One suspect at large, black helmet, black clothing.
A dispatcher broadcasts a description of the fleeing gunman on all police channels. FBI agents rush to the bank. Among them, Agent Mike Adams.
On my way to the bank, I did hear an officer was shot and was down. It was obviously a very violent takeover-style robbery.
Adams recognizes that these initial reports are similar to the 3 earlier robberies, and that the violence has escalated even further. With one armed gunman still on the loose, authorities quickly moved to contain the situation.
There were several people, bystanders, who were beginning to gather around. So Seattle police immediately took control of the scene because of the imminent danger and potential threat that still existed.
The Seattle Police Department directs their homicide unit to the scene, including Detective Paul Seguro.
Anytime there's officer-involved shooting where a Seattle police officer fires a weapon, we are called to investigate.
All law enforcement agencies begin working together to develop a plan to find the escaped gunman. Seattle police form an emergency command post to coordinate the effort.
Their assignment. Let's wrap it up right now. Take off, all right?
Members of our SWAT team had already started a search of the inner perimeter area.
Moving toward the general direction of the fleeing suspect, SWAT methodically searches every hiding space. They are careful, knowing that the gunman is desperate and could be anywhere.
Let's go! Right behind us, let's go!
Concerned for public safety, law enforcement swarms the area. Roads are blocked, traffic rerouted. Detective Sergeant David Ritter.
The bank robbery and subsequent police shooting led to a tremendous police presence in the area. We had dogs, we had the King County helicopter, the special weapons team.
The SWAT team goes door to door, warning everyone in the business district.
Anybody in here businesses were shut down. We closed all the local businesses for the safety of the people because the suspect was still at large.
Okay, you guys are right. Just do that, please. Thank you.
After treating gunshot wounds in Officer Buxton's left arm and right shoulder, the emergency medical technicians take him to the hospital.
Both wounds, the bullet went in and out, so it was just a matter of cleaning it up and make sure there wasn't anything that would cause any kind of infection.
Special Agent Adams searches the downed bank robber for clues.
I pulled out his identification, which said his name was Daniel Del Fierro. He was not someone that, known to the FBI at that time, but nonetheless, certainly a name for us to conduct further follow-up investigation.
Investigators locate the .380 semi-automatic handgun used to shoot Buxton. In a belt pack, they find a .38 revolver. Agents also recover 2 backpacks full of cash.
A lot of the money in there was still in shrink wrap, delivered from the Federal Reserve Bank. Later, the money found in both backpacks came up to well over $151,000. That is a lot of money, much more than is typically taken during a bank robbery.
Police run the plates of the motorcycle and learn it will not help them ID the escaped suspect. The bike was stolen. FBI agents interview bank employees and customers, searching for clues that might help them locate the second gunman. But the robbers never used any names, and no one saw their faces. An evidence technician recovers a footprint left on the teller counter. But it is the only physical evidence investigators find at the scene. The heist was clean. Local police pull up the record of the dead robber, Daniel Del Fierro. He was fresh out of prison, having served time for manslaughter and assault. Police continue to hunt down Del Fierro's accomplice. Within hours of the robbery, they pick up his trail. Detectives respond to a nearby junkyard where officers have recovered evidence.
We We were backtracking, finding the items of evidence that were discarded. As he's running, he's getting rid of his motorcycle he had on, gloves. It's sort of like the trail that he left behind. And he continues running probably another 50 feet. And then took off his jacket. There's a high chain link fence and barbed wire on top of that. There's also a handgun, a .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol covered close to the jacket.
Investigators suspect that the gunman was covering his trail by leaving behind evidence and any clothing that would later identify him. But just as the suspect's trail appears to be getting cold, it heats up again.
Zero. I'll be right there. Gotta go.
Investigators head to a nearby apartment building, responding to a call made by the building's manager.
Excuse me, ma'am. You don't want to call the police earlier.
She had called police after finding fresh blood outside an apartment.
Anything unusual? Went upstairs to my apartment and noticed the blood on the stairwell.
Did you see any?
We surmised that the second suspect must have cut his hand going over the fence.
If it is the gunman's blood, he could still be in the building, armed and desperate. Police call for SWAT.
Right, secure the perimeter. We'll get you to a safe spot.
And a nearby team arrives immediately. With a dangerous and elusive gunman still on the loose, police hope they now have him cornered. Following a Seattle bank robbery in June 2000, a gun battle leaves one police officer injured and one suspect dead. A second armed suspect flees on foot and disappears. Police follow a blood trail to a nearby apartment building. Thinking the gunman might be holed up there, a SWAT team checks the place, one hallway, one apartment at a time.
Clear the top, come on!
But they find nothing. Once the building is cleared, investigators secure a sample of the blood for later testing. Authorities pour every resource into the intense manhunt, according to Detective Sergeant David Ritter.
Because of the seriousness of the robbery, every available officer that we could find was involved in this hunt for the second suspect.
Police are cautious, knowing from experience that someone willing to shoot a cop is far more dangerous than the average criminal. FBI agents approach residents, asking them what they've seen and warning them about the fugitive.
The suspect was obviously very dangerous, and the people in the immediate area were afraid.
Tactical officers continue to check buildings, alleys, any place the suspect could hide.
Clear, clear, let's go, next one.
They instruct every business in a 15-block area to shut down and lock up.
Okay,
all right, thanks.
In no time, authorities seal off one of Seattle's busiest shopping districts, bringing the entire area to a standstill. Investigators have identified the suspect killed during the shootout as Danny Del Fiero. He is the investigators' best lead for locating the second robber. King County Deputy Prosecutor Steve Fogg.
So we got an immediate warrant for his residence, his car, to try to locate whatever information we could about him, and through that, who he might have done the crime with.
At Del Fiero's home, investigators meet a woman who had lived with him. She says she knows nothing about the robbery, but helps them compile a list of her housemate's associates.
We're trying to solve a crime here. Man, listen, I understand you're uptight about it.
Investigators then search Del Fiero's home, but find nothing that can help them identify the escaped suspect. Across town, officers respond to a call from a man who claims he was the target of an attempted carjacking. It is just north of the building where the blood was found.
I was leaving for work and,
The driver explains that minutes earlier, he was leaving his apartment complex.
all of a sudden he saw this guy jump out in front of him and slam both of his hands down on the hood and force him to stop. The guy said, "Hey, I've been in a fight and I need you to help me. Can you give me a ride?"
Look, I need your car. Just come on.
The man became more aggressive.
He put his hand into the car, tried to grab the keys, and tried to take the car himself. When it became apparent that that was not going to work, he became quite vicious, within, a matter of seconds. The owner of the car was able to fight him off, push him out the door, and then just jet off as fast as he could. He reported what had happened to a police officer.
Yeah, the guy was like,
Police are convinced the carjacker is the robber they're pursuing. The victim gives them a detailed description of his assailant and the direction he was going.
He was moving to the north, so that moved the search in that direction. We got the description out immediately, and the media was helpful, and they got it out to the public as fast as we had it.
For 3 hours, investigators find no sign of the fugitive until a 911 operator gets a call.
My wife and I, we've been mugged.
A man reports that he and his wife had been held hostage that afternoon. The intruder had fled, but they think he was the bank robber they heard about on the news.
Yes, the one that robbed the bank.
Investigators race to a residence north of the carjacking attempt. The couple explains what happened. 3 hours earlier, the woman was leaving her house when she saw a man in her truck. He was calm and told her he'd been in a fight and needed her help. She didn't fall for it.
At this point, the police and the media were sort of circling the area, and she pointed up to the helicopters and said, "No, I think actually they're looking for you." And again, the personality changed just like that. The woman is not somebody who was just going to kind of roll over for this guy.
She tried to fight back.
He grabbed a knife, let her know that he was capable of using it. He signaled to her that his own survival was at stake and he was going to be as brutal as he had to be.
Where's the tape? Tell me right now, where's the tape? Do you have any rope? Don't move.
As he searched for something with which to tie her up, her husband came home.
Honey! Honey! Where are you? Hey! I'm home. Honey, what's going on?
The husband then tried to intervene on behalf of his wife, and this guy punched him.
Stop moving! Stop moving! Give me your hands! Give me your hands!
At this point, they were just doing what they needed to do to survive, and so they said, I think they felt like if they were tied up, at least they wouldn't be shot or anything like that.
The couple could hear the assailant making calls on his cell phone in another room.
2434 Campbell Road. Knock on the window, okay?
Then he calmly got a beer from the refrigerator and began watching accounts of his own robbery on television. He seemed transfixed by live images of the extensive manhunt.
About 2.5, 3 hours after they were tied up, there was a knock on the window, and he sort of ran out the door, and that was the last they ever saw of him.
By the time police respond, it's clear the suspect has slipped through their dragnet.
Once we interviewed the people in the house, then it was pretty obvious that he had gotten away. The intensive search ended when it was obvious that he had fled the scene and he had had some help from somebody else, probably a car. So the actual physical search of the area was pretty much stopped at that time.
Investigators processed the entire house, collecting fingerprints and blood samples. They hope the evidence will help them identify a dangerous criminal. A man who will do anything to escape the law. An armed bank robber is on the run, following a deadly shootout in which police kill his partner. During his flight, the fugitive assaults a couple, then holds them hostage in their Seattle home, while he waits for a getaway driver to help him escape. FBI Special Agent Gary Shaneline knows this fugitive is especially dangerous.
The nature of the act itself of bank robbery is very violent, but in trying to effect an escape, his partner and he were involved in the shooting of a police officer and also the taking hostage of innocent citizens. So the stakes in this particular case were definitely higher.
Detective Paul Seguro begins canvassing the neighbors of the slain robber, Danny Del Fiero. One man tells Seguro he had seen television reports about the stolen motorcycle used in the robbery, and he recognized it.
He saw Del Fiero with the motorcycle prior to the bank robbery taking place.
The man tells Seguro he saw the bike on a tow truck.
And this individual had seen another individual inside the truck with Del Fiero the day before.
Seguro thinks the tow truck driver might be the second robber. He asks the neighbor if he knows who he is. The man says he had never seen him before. The owners of the bank that was robbed tried to help, according to FBI Special Agent Mike Adams.
That very day, the bank came to us and wanted to offer a reward for information that would lead to the identity, arrest, and eventual conviction of the person or persons responsible for that armed bank robbery.
Agents hope the large reward will make people more willing to talk.
Myself, other FBI agents spent many long hours attempting to gather as much information as we could.
Investigators tracked down every possible lead, trying to get more information on Del Fiero's known associates.
We drove to several different addresses and locations in our attempt to interview different people who we thought might be able to lead to the identity as well as the location of the second suspect of this bank robbery.
Every lead becomes a dead end. Investigators finally get a break when officers begin processing the evidence left behind by the fleeing robber.
Inside the jacket was this piece of paper that had a photocopy of a driver's license that belonged to a young 16-year-old girl, and then a lot of information about who she was.
Police begin looking for the young woman.
They called the best number they had for her, which was her dad. And her dad said, well, she's at the movies. And they said, well, you need to get her. So she came and talked to the police, and she said that as soon as her dad came into the movie theater, she immediately knew what it was about.
Basically, the reason why I asked is because
they show her the photocopied license and ask how the bank robbers got it.
She told us that she was approached by a person she went to high school with. The person she went to high school with said, I have an individual that has large sums of money. He needs ID and social security numbers. In return, you'll get a couple $1,000s if you let us use your ID and social security number.
The young woman explains the information was to be used to set up bank accounts to launder stolen money. She gives detectives the name of her high school friend, the middleman for the ID fraud.
So what is this all about?
Detectives track down the man and try to get him to cooperate.
We contacted him early morning hours. He was somewhat reluctant to talk to us at first, but then as we started talking to him, he finally started to tell us about who it was that asked him to obtain the identification and social security numbers.
His name is Aristotle.
He tells detectives the man's name is Aristotle Marr.
We then thought that it's very possible that Aristotle Marr is the person we're looking for, because he was obviously looking for a way to launder money in the hopes of getting legitimate funds in return.
Investigators are convinced they're on the right track when the middleman tells investigators that Marr owns a towing service. Police conduct a background check. DMV records reveal that there is a tow truck registered to Marr, and that it matches the one described by Del Fiero's neighbor. Investigators return to Del Fiero's home to ask his old roommate if she knows Aristotle Marr. She says Marr and Del Fierro had been friends since childhood.
So now his name has come up in two different sources or two different ways during the investigation. So now we started to focus on Aristotle Marr as being the second suspect involved in the bank robbery.
Authorities check Marr's police record. It's clean, except for one assault charge he received as a minor. Tax records show Marr runs a successful towing business and already owns property worth $400,000. Police are surprised to learn he was a star athlete in high school, graduating 6 years earlier with a 4.0 grade point average.
The first thing everybody said about him was how smart he was. And you could see he had a lot of potential in life, but was impatient enough. And I think that that fed directly into the greed that motivated these crimes.
Steve Fogg subpoenas the cell phone records of Marr and Del Fierro. He discovers calls made between the two suspects prior to the robbery. Circumstantial evidence that they were possibly in the planning stages.
Danny Del Fierro and Aristotle Marr were talking, 10 times an hour in the days and weeks that preceded this.
Police then ask witnesses to confirm Marr's identity. To do this, they create a photo montage.
Typically, what happens is you have 6 photos, and the person who's the suspect is one of the 6. Here, the police put together a 12-person montage. They really went the extra mile just to make absolutely certain that we had the right guy.
Authorities show the photo montage to the woman who was assaulted and held hostage in her home.
And she didn't have any hesitation at all. She picked out Mr. Marr immediately.
Later, her husband and the carjacking victim would also pick out Marr as their attacker.
So with that, taken together with all the circumstantial evidence, we were quite confident that Aristotle Marr was the guy we were looking for.
Let's go.
Authorities secure an arrest warrant for Marr and a search warrant for his home. Knowing Marr's volatile tendencies, police prepare for what could be a violent confrontation. On June 22, 2000, a pair of alleged serial bank robbers hit another Seattle bank. During a shootout with police, one bandit is killed, and the other escapes. The dead robber is Daniel Del Fierro. Authorities believe the fugitive is Aristotle Marr. Fearing a violent confrontation, police prepare to serve arrest and search warrants with the help of a tactical unit. With the team are homicide detectives Paul Seguro and David Ritter.
When we went to the residence, we had members of the SWAT team, multiple Seattle police units to assist us in securing the premise.
Room by room, SWAT searches the house. They find no sign of Marr. Homicide detective Paul Seguro.
Once the home is secured, myself and the rest of the homicide unit went in and started searching through the home.
Something real quick.
They look for any evidence that can tie Marr to the robbery or provide a clue to his whereabouts. In a hidden storage area, they find remnants of an arsenal.
Look at that. There it is. Look at that.
Detectives recover empty containers for various types of handguns.
I can reach for that, sir.
Although they do find a few weapons, most of the guns are gone.
There was different types of ammunition for long guns, shotguns. There was ammunition for handguns.
Detectives begin looking at the bullets more closely and uncover an important piece of evidence.
We found ammunition that matched ammunition that we found at the scene of the bank robbery.
Authorities also discover another lead. Documents that show frequent travel to and from Jamaica by Marr and several associates.
Also, there was small photographs and templates for the making of what appeared to be false identification.
Investigators suspect that Marr may have plans to flee the country under a false name. During the search at Marr's home, authorities discover a second house on the property.
Excuse me, Bob. We need that house cleared over there.
Agents immediately file a search warrant for the place and set up surveillance while they wait for the warrant to be processed. For a week, authorities watch people come and go, but see no sign of the robbery suspect. When a judge finally issues the warrant, SWAT goes in. What they find spins the investigation in another direction. The building is a storage unit for stolen goods.
We found numerous boxes, brand new appliances, riding lawnmowers that were brand new, refrigerators, numerous cellular phones, and just all kinds of items that were still intact, brand new, still in the box.
Investigators find packing lists still attached to the items, indicating they came from local home improvement stores.
It was obvious to us that Aristotle Marr was involved in a bigger criminal enterprise than just bank robberies.
The items were large. There were appliances, there were pallets of windows, big things, stuff that somebody doesn't go in and shoplift. I mean, these were big items and showed that there had to be some pretty sophisticated means to obtain this property. It was obvious that we needed help from our burglary and theft people. They coordinated the recovery of the property.
The Burglary and Theft Division work with representatives from the local stores to identify more than $100,000 worth of stolen goods.
Representatives provided a big, large moving van, and all the items that were identified as being stolen or suspicious were then loaded in the back of the moving van and taken off property.
Investigators suspect that Marr must have had help obtaining and selling the items.
We believe a lot of the stolen property was sent to Jamaica. There just was some indication, some receipts, shipping receipts, etc., that showed a large amount of household goods going to Jamaica.
Authorities intensify their search for the alleged crime ringleader, Aristotle Marr. The Seattle FBI's Fugitive Task Force takes the lead. Special Agent Gary Shainline.
Well, we started with the fundamentals by contacting his family and associates in the hopes of finding that person that could give us the information that would lead to safe and swift apprehension.
But every person agents interview claims no knowledge of Marr's whereabouts. Within weeks, the search for Marr begins to take its toll on the fugitive. In an unexpected, bold move, a group of Marr supporters, including his lawyer, holds a press conference proclaiming his innocence. They charge police have falsely accused him because of his association with Daniel Del Fiero. Agents speak with lawyers about arranging surrender, but instead hear a preposterous claim.
We tried to have him turn himself in a safe manner, in a controlled environment. And they said that he was, afraid that he was going to be, killed by the local police.
Marr remains a fugitive. The FBI takes a new approach. They seek the help of a national television crime show, advertising a $25,000 reward for information leading to Marr's arrest. The tips pour in. One caller claims he's been in contact with Marr through a popular web-based instant messaging system. Agents subpoena the internet provider for details on the instant messaging account and receive transcripts of the online conversations.
Through the content of the dialogue on the instant messaging communication, it was logical to believe that one of the participants was Aristotle Marr.
The company provides agents with the address of the computer used.
We approached it with the belief that it was possible that Mark could be there at that time.
Open up.
Armed with a search warrant, they confront a man who they recognize as a known associate of Marr.
Sure?
Yeah, I'm sure, sir.
He says Marr isn't there.
No?
Agents conduct a thorough search for any evidence that could prove the fugitive had been in the apartment, but they find nothing. Agents confiscate the computer in question. They eventually determined that Marr had probably never used the computer, that it had been the associate pretending to be Marr on the instant messaging system.
You ready?
The investigator's latest lead is a dead end.
That search really didn't glean any further information regarding Aristotle's whereabouts.
The FBI continues surveillance at the houses of family and friends, but soon realize Marr may never return.
You know, unlike your garden variety bank robber, Aristotle Marr did have some financial means. He had owned property at a rental house, and I'm sure that those assets and those means, helped him in his fugitive status.
An informant calls the FBI with a tip that appears to support what agents already fear.
A confidential source indicated that he had fled under an alias, that he had not just crossed the state line, but actually had fled the country, and that he had fled to Jamaica.
If Marr has indeed left the country under another name, he might be impossible to find. The FBI is now facing their toughest obstacle in a case that appears impossible to crack. The FBI continues to hunt for bank robbery suspect Aristotle Marr. They believe he fled to Jamaica under an assumed name. But the FBI cannot simply go after him, according to Special Agent Gary Shainline.
We don't have any police authority in other countries, so there are FBI representatives and there's U.S. Marshals in Jamaica that liaise with Jamaican authorities, and I was providing them with all the information that we were gleaning from our investigation here, giving them names and points of contact, possible locations that were worthy of investigation in Jamaica in the pursuit of Marr.
Investigating Marr's whereabouts in Jamaica is difficult. He's well connected on the island and has a lot of money to help him disappear.
We're confident that through those resources that he was able to maintain a low profile and have different places to go to hide himself.
Informants report occasional sightings of the fugitive, but he eludes capture. Agents believe he is moving from house to house under cover of night, supported by a loyal group of associates. Following the leads from agents in the United States, authorities in Jamaica relentlessly pursue the fugitive. They contact every known associate of Aristotle Marr. They are uncooperative, but authorities keep them under surveillance.
It's Aristotle Marr.
Marshals were watching everything they did down in Jamaica. They made it very clear that they were not going to go away until Mr. Marr returned to the United States and answered to these charges.
In Seattle, King County Deputy Prosecutor Steve Fogg decides to file several charges against the fugitive, based on the abundance of circumstantial evidence already in hand.
We charged him with an array of counts that reflected the full nature of this crime spree. We charged him with robbery in the first degree with the firearm enhancement because he was armed when that happened. We charged him as an accomplice with Danny Del Fiero to the shooting of Officer Buxton. We charged him with attempt robbery too, which is a formal way of saying attempted carjacking. And then kidnappings because they were essentially kidnapped and held hostage in their own basement.
Steve Fogg also suspects Marr is involved in an international theft ring, but decides not to press charges.
Mr. Marr was already looking at so much time that the amount of additional time that would be added by this theft ring would be negligible. I mean, you're talking about a year or two on a guy who's looking at, 30, 40, 50 years in prison. So we did not charge Mr. Marr for that.
Authorities intensify their search for Marr. Seattle homicide detective David Ritter.
We kept the pressure up.
Give me a break.
I mean, they felt our presence. They made several complaints that we were harassing them, but we weren't. We were conducting an investigation of a very violent crime, and we wanted to solve it. We wanted him in custody. It got the whole situation probably too hot for him. He wasn't having much fun anymore.
After 7 months, the constant pressure pays off. On February 7th, 2001, Aristotle Marr shocks police, walking into the King County Jail with his lawyer.
Just go up to the counter, put your hands where I can see them.
Seattle Police Detective Paul Seguro had chased Marr from the beginning.
Sergeant Christopher, this is Tebow down at the watch desk. Aristotle Marr just turned himself in.
I was surprised that Aristotle Marr had actually taken upon himself to turn himself in. We tried to talk to Aristotle Marr, interview him about the robberies, where he'd been. He did not wish to talk about any aspects of the investigation at all.
Authorities believe he has come back to take the pressure off his associates, and because he is sure the charges will never stick.
He was quite confident, in fact probably cocky, that this would be a case that he could beat in court. He could come back, beat this case, and kill two birds with one stone.
At his arraignment, Marr pleads not guilty to all charges.
One advantage that Mr. Marr had by fleeing was he could sit back and watch our case develop, and I had no doubt that he'd have an explanation for all the evidence, and we would have a real fight on our hands at trial.
Marr's defense team knows that lab examiners have found his fingerprints on items dropped outside the bank, including the motorcycle helmet and a pair of gloves. They explain the prints by claiming Marr lent the items to Daniel Del Fiero, the suspect killed in the shootout.
What Mr. Marr didn't know about, but we of course knew about, was this blood trail that had been left. I knew that the next step was to get an immediate sample of his blood, and I knew that that would definitely be the silver bullet if we were able to develop DNA information from the blood trail that was left.
A judge orders Marr to submit the samples, which DNA experts compare to blood found at the apartment complex and inside the kidnapped couple's house and truck. The examiner reports a match.
At that point, any concern we had about the outcome of that case definitely lifted, because it was clear that, taken together with all the other evidence that we already had, that this was a rock-solid case.
Marr decides not to risk a jury trial and changes his plea to guilty. He is sentenced to 23 years in prison with no chance of parole. Seattle police officer Wesley Buxton, shot during his confrontation with Marr and Del Fiero, is relieved that Marr finally got what he deserved.
I'm probably your typical police officer that feels that criminals should get much more than they actually get as far as the demands of justice. But I was fairly satisfied with the sentence.
Special Agent Mike Adams.
Given the high number of bank robberies we have every year, on average, well over 300 bank robberies here in the state of Washington, it's a good feeling when we can bring about, or at least help bring about, a successful conclusion to such a high-profile bank robbery investigation.
In the end, it was the combined efforts of the Seattle Police Department and the FBI that finally put Aristotle Marr out of business. In Las Vegas, fortunes are won and lost through games of chance, but some try to beat the odds with violence. A ruthless band of vicious thugs strikes several casinos, taking thousands of dollars, leaving a bloody trail in their wake. Local police and the FBI team up to identify and track down the deadly gunman, who will stop at nothing to avoid capture.
the kind of story that Hollywood films are made of. Brazen armed robberies of Las Vegas casinos. But this was no movie. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. They were a gang of criminal masterminds. They carried automatic weapons and were not afraid to use them. With each and every new heist, they became bolder and more deadly, until the FBI stepped in, determined to end their violent rampage.
Las Vegas, Nevada, September 20th, 1998. It is shortly before noon at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. Two armed couriers, escorted by an MGM security guard, transport the casino's money toward an exit where an armored truck awaits. Suddenly, two gunmen confront them. One grabs the courier's guns, then snatches 3 money pouches containing nearly $350,000 in cash. Then the men flee through a side exit. The guards call the Las Vegas police and the FBI. Detectives and agents respond to the casino and interview the guards, who give investigators a rough description of their assailants.
Any kind of logo on the jacket?
Not that I saw.
Okay.
It was two Latinos. I'm pretty sure it was Latinos.
What kind of guns were they?
They were not
The robbers left no physical evidence at the scene.
Right.
Two semi-automatic weapons.
Right.
They were standing like right here together.
The MGM, like all Las Vegas casinos, has a vast network of security cameras. FBI agents review video of the crime. Special Agent Henry Schlump observes the way the lead gunman brandished his weapons, which suggests he could be a dangerous individual.
Seeing a subject commit a robbery with a gun in each hand is not typical. That would be a rare occurrence, and I think it would portend the violence that the subject was capable of.
We got two-fisted gunslinger. Okay, can you give me the outside tape? They go directly out to the sidewalk and down the street.
Agents also watch footage captured by the hotel's exterior cameras, which reveals that the robbers fled across the street toward a neighboring hotel. Investigators go to the Hotel San Remo and review surveillance video from their exterior cameras. They see the robbers get into a pickup truck driven by a third man.
Stop.
But the video cannot provide a viable lead, according to FBI Special Agent Castle Nishimoto.
The quality of the film wasn't as such that we could make out exactly the numbers on the plates. We had a few partials on the numbers, but we couldn't see the whole plate. We could only read the first 3 numbers, but we couldn't get the 3 alphabet letters after that.
Despite having only a general description, police begin searching for the getaway truck. However, they are unable to immediately find it. Nearly 2 months later, continued search efforts lead to a break in the case. Once again at the San Remo. In the casino's parking lot, a Las Vegas Metro Police detective locates what looks like the getaway truck. The truck's plate numbers match the partial numbers seen on the surveillance tape. To investigators, it seems the robbers waited for the heat to die down after the robbery, then drove the getaway truck back to the San Remo. The detective runs a check on the vehicle's identification number and discovers it was reported stolen almost 3 weeks before the MGM robbery. Running a check on the license plate, investigators find it was stolen from a disabled car kept at a Las Vegas storage area.
Can I help you?
Yes, sir. Investigator Fleetwood, we're looking into some thefts that occurred.
The manager of the facility tells the Las Vegas Metro Police detective he knows nothing about the theft. He suggests he speak to the watchman who lives at the storage area, Jose Vigoa.
There he is, right there.
The manager points out Vigoa in the distance. The detective asks the manager to have the watchman contact him, but Vigoa never calls. Months pass, and the investigation runs out of leads. June 28, 1999, 9 months after the MGM robbery. At the Desert Inn Casino, an armored van is making its rounds collecting cash. Two gunmen confront the guards. The guard inside the van is hit in the arm. His partner returns fire, but is hit 3 times in the leg. Through their training, the guards know to aim for the chest. Their bullets slam into the gunman, but the shots fail to stop them. They must be wearing body armor. The guard on the ground manages to get to the safety of the armored vehicle. The van's driver heads to a nearby hospital. Both guards survive the gun battle. Within minutes, Las Vegas police and the FBI converge at the Desert Inn. A casino employee tells investigators she saw the gunman flee the scene in a light-colored SUV, and police put out an alert. FBI Special Agent Richard Beasley studies the crime scene.
My initial impression was that it was a very bold attempt to take an armored car. These guys weren't afraid to use the firepower that they had with them. There was a number of brass casings in one area and a number of brass casings in the other area where the armored car guards had shot their rounds.
Agents believe that the gunmen who committed this attack were not the same ones who held up the MGM. The MO was not the same. In the investigators' experience, criminals rarely change their MO if it has worked in the past. FBI Special Agent Brett Shields.
They were successful at MGM indoors, waiting for the guards indoor. The Desert Inn is outdoors, like they're trying to get the whole truck.
10 minutes after arriving at the scene, Agent Beasley gets a call that the getaway car has been found.
I'll be right there.
One of the uniform officers had been patrolling the area looking for this vehicle, and they found it in the parking lot of a small motel. We looked inside, and we could see shell casings on the floor, and there was a .45 caliber shell casing on one of the running boards.
Investigators also find an empty water bottle inside the vehicle. It is preserved in the hopes of recovering DNA evidence from it. Nearby, agents interview a man who says he saw the men who were driving the SUV.
There was a witness there that had been walking his dog that had witnessed the exchange of the vehicle. One robber goes to the back of a pickup truck, simply threw a bag in the back, made a loud noise, what we think is the guns. The other two jump into the front of this pickup truck.
Let's go, man. Let's go. What's the matter?
The key. The key doesn't work, man.
Let's go. Go back.
they were having difficulties actually getting the vehicle started.
The witness then saw the two men frantically working on the steering column.
The key doesn't work. What do you mean? Figure it out. Come on, hotwire something.
He didn't know whether they were messing with it to hotwire it or what.
Finally, the pickup roared to life and the men took off. Agents wonder why the robbers had to hotwire their own getaway vehicle. Presumably, they had placed the truck there ahead of time. So why didn't they have the keys?
That was strange to us. We couldn't understand why that would have taken place.
Then agents notice a pickup of the same make and model parked nearby.
We thought maybe because there were two vehicles that were very similar, parked close together, they had jumped into the other vehicle, and of course their keys don't work, so they had to hotwire it.
Agent Slump and I go back to the rear of this second pickup truck, and we notice that there's a license plate rubber banded over another license plate.
The FBI runs the vehicle identification number on the pickup and discovers that it belongs to an ex-con named Pedro Duarte. The crime scene investigator finds fingerprints on the top license plate. Investigators run the prints and discover they belong to Duarte. This suggests that Duarte rubber-banded the stolen plate to his own pickup. At the request of FBI agents, the witness agrees to describe the three men he saw to a police artist. Investigators hope that composite sketches will aid in identifying suspects. The next day, investigators travel to Pedro Duarte's house to ask him about his truck.
So I had the composite with me, and when we go to knock on the door, and Pedro Duarte comes to the door, it's like, holy cow.
Duarte bears a close resemblance to the man in the sketch.
Mind if we come in and talk to you for a moment? Sure.
When asked about his truck, Duarte insists that it was stolen. Police records show that it was in fact reported stolen, but that was hours after the attempted robbery at the Desert Inn.
His story was that he and his wife had had personal problems, and so he went down just to walk the strip. So he had parked his vehicle and was just walking up and down the strip, and that he had fallen asleep on a bench.
Duarte claims that when he woke up, his truck was gone.
You know, just nonsense. None of his story was true. He's just cocky as cocky can be, and his English was fine until we started getting to the harder questions, and then no habla.
Duarte suddenly claims he cannot speak English.
The Metro Sergeant was even talking to him in Spanish, and he still claimed that he couldn't understand. It was a very frustrating interview.
Discrimination.
Investigators are convinced Duarte is involved, but are stymied by a lack of direct evidence against him.
We still didn't have any answers. I mean, was he up to no good on the strip? Absolutely. Could he have been doing jewelry robberies or purse snatchings or anything else and try to disguise his vehicle and this just be coincidental? Absolutely.
Man, I don't know what you're even talking about, man.
So we weren't comfortable enough to arrest him at the time. And we got nowhere with the interview.
Hoping to get a positive identification on Duarte, Agent Shields shows a photo lineup to the only witness who has seen the faces of the Desert Inn robbers.
I can't tell.
And our witness did not pick him out of a photo lineup. So we had to go back to other means, trying to identify his associates, his money trail. Just kind of a full blitz on Duarte at that point.
In an effort to gather any incriminating evidence against their suspect, investigators set up surveillance on Duarte. But after weeks of watching, they come up with nothing. The Mandalay Bay Casino, October 11th, 1999, 4 months after the attempted robbery at the Desert Inn. 2 armed couriers pick up $88,000 and transport it to their armored truck. Suddenly, 2 gunmen ambush them. In the fall of 1998, 2 gunmen execute a brazen robbery inside Las Vegas's MGM Grand Casino, taking almost $350,000. Now, a year later, couriers collecting money at the Mandalay Bay Casino are under attack. The robbers quickly disarm them and flee with $88,000 in cash.
Let's go, let's go.
At the FBI's Las Vegas field office, agents review the surveillance video of the robbery. Special Agent Brett Shields suspects that the gunman who robbed the MGM committed this robbery as well.
When we saw the manner of how this robbery had taken place at Mandalay Bay, there was a lot of similarities. The way the approach was made, the way the weapons were held, weapons in both hands, arms extended, and it did trigger some thoughts that the MGM and the Mandalay Bay are connected.
I've been working on this for a long time.
Investigators pore over the case, searching for any clue that might have been missed. Special Agent Richard Beasley.
Brett Shields and I were in the office. We were talking about the case, what we could do to develop additional leads, make sure all the leads that we had been covered.
And I'm looking over his shoulder and I recognize the name on there.
Vigoa is the watchman at the storage facility that detectives never got to interview.
And at that time, it kind of lights went off for me that I told Agent Beasley, hey, if this is actually Jose Vigoa, then, you know, that's our guy.
Jose Vigoa. Who's that?
Agent Shields has a history with Vigoa.
I had arrested Jose Vigoa in 1990. That was one of the first arrests that I had made as an FBI agent.
In 1990, the FBI was investigating Cuban immigrant Jose Vigoa for cocaine trafficking and went to a storage facility with a warrant to search his unit.
As they're entering to go do the search, Jose Vigoa speeds away. An agent is standing in front of the gate and he actually tries to run him over. That's his personality, you know, that's just the type of person that he is, that he's not going to be taken by the police without a fight, and no respect for life or anybody but himself.
Investigators checked Vigoa's storage unit and found a scale covered with cocaine residue and his fingerprints. He was later convicted of drug trafficking and assaulting a federal officer. He served 6 years in prison for his crimes. Shields remembers that Pedro Duarte was questioned in connection to the recent Desert Inn shootings. Duarte is Jose Vigoa's brother-in-law. To investigators, it now seems that the 2 robberies inside the casinos are connected to the attack outside the Desert Inn. They all appear to be the work of one group of robbers. Agents decide to show Vigoa's probation officer the casino surveillance video to see if she can identify any of the robbers. The next day at the FBI office, Vigoa's probation officer watches surveillance tapes of both the MGM and Mandalay Bay robberies. She says one of the gunmen resembles Vigoa, but can't make a positive ID. Disappointed but undeterred, agents put Vigoa under surveillance. According to his probation officer, Vigoa earns only $10,000 a year and lives in a shack at the storage facility where he works. But Agent Beasley discovers that Vigoa actually lives in a middle-class house.
We did financial background checks, and the house was in fact purchased just a few weeks after the MGM robbery. It was interesting to us because about $19,000 in cash had been put down on this house. The house was not purchased in Vigoa's name. It was purchased in the name of a person named Oscar Cisneros.
Agents suspect Vigoa is using Cisneros as a financial front to hide his purchases.
We knew after talking to Vigoa's probation officer that Vigoa was supposed to be working a labor-type job. He wasn't supposed to have much money. So if assets started showing up in Vigoa's name, that would certainly raise suspicion to his probation officer.
Vigoa's finances are questionable, but they are not an indication of guilt.
We didn't have any eyewitness identification of him in these robberies, and just because somebody's spending a large amount of cash doesn't necessarily mean that they were involved in a robbery. Vigoa was a convicted drug dealer. We didn't know if he was back in the drug trade, which would account for him having a large amount of cash.
The results of the financial background check are not enough to move the investigation forward.
We didn't have probable cause yet for any kind of warrant to go search Vigoa's house or his property or his vehicles. It just wasn't there yet. Even if we had even the minimal for a search warrant, we may not be ready to actually do it yet. We want to develop additional so we have enough to make the arrest and get a conviction, not just get enough for a search warrant for the house.
Agents continue to watch Vigoa. Five months later, on March 3rd, 2000, in the neighboring suburb of Henderson, local police and the FBI respond to a report of an assault on an armored vehicle in front of the Ross Dress for Less department store. Two guards are dead.
When we arrived, there was police tape up. There was cars all over the place. Witnesses were scattered, and there was the body of one of the security officers in the parking lot next to the truck. It was not a good scene.
Investigators worked to determine the series of events that led to the two deaths.
We started interviewing people in the parking lot, people in the surrounding businesses. A lot of people had heard the shots. Some people had seen the shots. Some people had seen the vehicle driving away. Everybody had a small piece to the puzzle that we were trying to put together.
According to witnesses, around 11:15 a.m., an armored van parked in front of the department store. One guard went inside to pick up the store's deposit, passing between two minivans which witnesses reported seeing parked there since early that morning. When the guard returned with the money, the gunman pounced. The courier drew his weapon and fired, hitting one gunman in the knee. But another gunman opened fire with an assault rifle. The guard died almost instantly. The gunman's fury was then leveled on the van's driver. The lead gunman grabbed the money bags. All three men made their escape in what witnesses described as a beige sedan. Their total take was less than $5,000.
The amount of violence used in that crime was just incredible. The number of rounds that were fired and the brutal cold-bloodedness that these security officers were killed was just uncalled for.
The details of the attack lead agents to believe this robbery was perpetrated by the same group they are currently investigating.
The lying in wait, the attempt on the armored car, the high-power weapons, the shots fired, it all matched with the Desert Inn attempt.
A crime scene technician processes the minivans used by the robbers, but he is unable to recover any evidence that could help identify them. As investigators continue working into the early evening, they experience a moment of unexpected and chilling sadness.
When it's getting around 5 o'clock, cell phone starts ringing on the dead guard, and it was just a feeling of emptiness that it's kind of every cop's nightmare, you know, that you're not coming home that particular night, and then your wife or your significant other is calling, wanting to know where you're at and why you're not home. The phone kept ringing, and everybody wanted to pick up that phone and talk on the other end. It was just a bad feeling.
Investigators at the scene decide to join forces to track down the killers.
We formed kind of an ad hoc task force within the FBI, Henderson Police Department, and Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department in order to identify the group of individuals who were doing these crimes. Everybody's goal was the same, to try to catch these guys.
But without any evidence implicating their suspects, they will need to move quickly if they are to capture them before they strike again. In Henderson, Nevada, a group of heavily armed robbers continue their violent rampage with an assault on an armored van, killing 2 guards in a hail of gunfire. A few hours after the attack, police locate the robbers' abandoned getaway car in a parking lot. FBI Special Agent Henry Schlumpf investigates.
We got there, we could see there was blood in the driver's seat of the vehicle.
Witnesses to the robbery had reported that one of the gunmen had been shot. A crime scene technician collects the blood as it may become valuable later as DNA evidence. Agents run the plates on the getaway car and the vans left by the killers at the scene of the robbery and find that they were all stolen from a rental car lot. The task force is unable to definitively identify suspects in the robbery, but they are confident it is connected to a string of similar heists over the past 18 months. Those crimes have been tied circumstantially to ex-cons Jose Vigoa and Pedro Duarte, Vigoa's brother-in-law. But without any hard evidence implicating the pair, the investigation stalls. June 3rd, 2000, 3 months after the Ross killings, the Bellagio Hotel and Casino. It's shortly after 6 a.m. Casino employees are counting money in the main cashier's cage.
This is robbery!
Gunmen force frightened employees into a corner and then clean out the money drawers.
Don't move!
The robbers take over $144,000 in cash. But the gunmen are not finished. They want more. They target a nearby change booth. This time, the robbers allow the cashier to leave. They steal an additional $10,000. The security guard notices the fleeing cashier on a surveillance camera and zooms in for a closer look. The guard alerts outside security as he watches the robbers flee the building through an emergency exit.
There they are.
The robbers jump into their getaway van and speed off with more than $150,000. They're unaware that Bellagio guards in an unmarked van are following them and alerting police. However, once the robbers realize they're being followed, they react with violence. One bullet strikes the security van's tire, ending the pursuit. Fortunately, none of the guards are injured. They provide police with the make, model, and license plate number for the vehicle. When FBI Special Agent Brett Shields hears the details of the heist and the robbers' violent escape, he is convinced it is connected to their suspects.
And it shows the mentality of these guys that they weren't going to get taken. They were going to shoot it out, they were going to run, they were going to do everything they could to get away.
At the Bellagio's security office, agents ask Jose Vigoa's probation officer to watch surveillance video of the crime, hoping for a positive ID.
We showed the video, and she said, yeah, that was Jose Vigoa doing that robbery.
Sure.
I swear to it.
This is the break agents need to bring in Vigoa. They obtain an arrest warrant, but they worry that this ruthless killer will not be taken down without a fight. In Las Vegas, the FBI has finally identified ex-con Jose Vigoa as the suspected leader of a violent band of robbers who has already killed 2 people. Agents obtain an arrest warrant for Vigoa and move to apprehend him. FBI Special Agent Brett Shields.
They had a vehicle in front. The Metro SWAT team was going to pull up, exit the vehicle, and take him down at gunpoint. The SWAT officers got out and aimed their weapons at him. I pulled around the SWAT vehicle. He and we're side by side, and I'm actually showing him my credentials, and he's acting like, who are we? And the vehicle in front of him wasn't close enough to his vehicle, so he was able simply to pull out and to proceed.
Chase is extremely dangerous, reaching speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. The suspect refuses to slow even for a second. After a few miles, Vigoa loses control of his vehicle and hits a tree.
He exits the vehicle and flees. He's gone. He's jumping over fences. He's going.
Las Vegas SWAT officers chase after Vigoa while Agent Shields inspects the wrecked vehicle. To his surprise, he finds Vigoa's wife in the passenger seat. She's taken into custody, but is later released when investigators determined she was not involved in her husband's crimes. In the back seat, Agent Shields finds Vigoa's daughter.
His wife is in the vehicle along with his little girl. Total disregard for them. Doesn't care that he's leaving them to face the police and all the weapons that's going to be drawn on them. He's taking care of himself.
SWAT officers finally catch up to Vigoa and take him down.
I arrive right as he's getting picked up. He's just arrogant. You can't touch me, I'm the man. So I said, well, we can touch you, and basically told him this, it ends here. I mean, he's not going to see the light of day again.
To ensure a conviction, agents need more proof.
Police, open up! It's the police, open the door!
Armed with a search warrant, they enter Vigoa's house and find nearly $100,000 in cash, but no evidence directly connecting him to any of the robberies. With Vigoa in custody, FBI Special Agent Richard Beasley moves in on Oscar Cisneros, Vigoa's financial frontman.
We needed to talk with Cisneros about the assets that were in his name being used by Vigoa. We identified ourselves and told him that Jose Vigoa had just been arrested for the Bellagio robbery and that we needed to talk with him about his relationship with Vigoa and these robberies that have been happening in Las Vegas. I told him that we also wanted to search his house, and Oscar said, "That's fine. I'll talk with you, and you can search my house."
Good, thanks.
So right there on the hood of my car, he executed a consent to search form, which gave us his permission to search his house.
Yeah, you can go ahead and come on in.
Investigators search while Agent Beasley and a Henderson detective question Cisneros.
Appreciate you bringing us in here. I wanted to ask you about this house and this guy.
Look, I've known him for a long
We
time.
talked with Oscar about his relationship with Vigoa, about the assets that had been put in Cisneros' name on behalf of Vigoa, and where the money had come from in order to purchase those assets. Cisneros told us that he was just doing a friend a favor. It wasn't his money, but he wanted to help his friend out. We asked him if he'd had any contact with Vigoa in the last several weeks. He said, yeah, Vigoa brought over some money a few days ago. He didn't know where the money was from, didn't know how much it was, and it was kind of in repayment for him being a good friend to put these assets in his name.
Agent Beasley pressures him, but Cisneros says he knows nothing about any crimes.
Again, he was very calm, collected. He claimed not to know anything about anything. He was just trying to work hard and pay his bills and support his family and just live a normal life.
In the bedroom, investigators find a box full of cash. Suspicious, but not incriminating.
A lot of hundreds, 50s, 5s, 10s.
After searching for an hour with no results, an investigator on a hunch decides to search for any hidden compartments.
I've got something here.
And uncovers a motherload of evidence.
Ammunition, body armor.
Agent Beasley talks with the searchers.
And they said, Rich, we found it. We found a secret compartment in his closet. Appears to have everything in it that's going to be what we've been looking for.
The agent needs to know if the items in the closet were used in the robberies.
So I immediately went back where Oscar was sitting. I said, Oscar, we found it. We found your closet. What's going to be in there? He kind of sighed. He looked down. He said, the guns, everything. So at that point, I knew that he was going to be more of a player than what I thought he possibly could have been.
The agent asks him about a scar on his knee.
So tell me.
And I could see the inside of his right knee, and there was like a puncture wound.
I got shot.
Shot? Where?
At Ross.
We were just ecstatic. We identified one of the people who had been shot at the Ross, and we were well on our way to solving that killing.
All right. I
How much time am I looking at?
He started asking us what kind of penalty he was looking at, what kind of prison time. And we were very honest with him. We told him, you know, we couldn't tell exactly for sure what he was looking at, but it could very well be the death penalty because of the murders with the aggravated robbery, and he continued to ask us more about the potential penalties.
Why do you need the death penalty? I could always put in a good word for you. But I mean, you know, you're going to have to help us out here.
All right, look.
Eventually he confessed to the Ross killings, the Desert Inn attempted armored car robbery, the MGM robbery, the Mandalay Bay robbery, the Bellagio robbery.
Okay, the lead guy is Jose Vigoa. That's the lead guy.
Based on Oscar's confession, we learned that Vigoa was the ringleader. He was the one who was organizing everything, deciding which hits to do. His brother-in-law, Pedro Duarte, had been involved in the robberies until the Desert Inn. After that, they brought in another individual, Luis Suarez, and he had taken part in the Ross killing as well. I think Cisneros eventually confessed to us because he truly had remorse about what had happened, not so much with the robberies, but with the killing of the armored car guards.
As Cisneros continues to confess, investigators process the evidence in the bedroom.
They were taking each piece out, cataloging it, making sure that nothing was disturbed as far as fingerprints or DNA type evidence. Toward the end of the search, they'd found what appeared to be pipe bombs in there. They were 4-inch black PVC type pipes with some type of circuit board attached to them.
Investigators confront Cisneros about the bombs, asking if they are real.
And Oscar said, no, not really. Didn't really give us a warm feeling that we could rely on what he was telling us. He said, I'm going to ask you one more time, what are these things? He said, oh, we were just playing around. You don't really have to worry about them. It was that point, because of the vagueness of the answers, that we decided to go ahead and evacuate the house and the surrounding neighbors.
Agents take the evidence and abandon the house, leaving behind the pipe bombs.
We called the bomb squad, and they came in and looked at the devices. They couldn't x-ray them because they were black PVC, and so they made the decision to go ahead and just explode them right there in the bedroom.
Based on Cisneros' confession, investigators arrest Pedro Duarte for being the getaway driver at the Desert Inn.
Pedro Duarte, warrant for your arrest. Going off this wall.
Investigators move to arrest the final robber, Luis Suarez, but he has fled the state. Ballistics experts test the weapons found at Cisneros' house and match them to bullets and shell casings from the Ross killings and the Desert Inn shooting. Experts also find critical evidence against Vigoa.
We found Vigoa's fingerprint on one of the bullets inside one of the magazines that was in Cisneros' closet.
Prosecutors hold Oscar Cisneros at the Clark County Detention Center and intend to use his testimony at trial against the other robbers.
We felt like it was a pretty tight package. We had Cisneros' confession, we had all the physical evidence for the guns and the money and the clothing that we found in the closet. So we felt like it was coming together very well.
But one event would put the entire case in jeopardy. In Las Vegas, investigators have arrested 3 men connected to a violent robbery group. The leader, Jose Vigoa, his brother-in-law, Pedro Duarte, and Oscar Cisneros, who confessed everything to federal agents and implicated a 4th man, Luis Suarez, in the robberies. But on October 7th, 2000, The case weakens when Cisneros hangs himself in his cell. FBI Special Agent Richard Beasley.
We learned later from the officers who investigated the suicide at the detention center that Vigoa had been sending messages up to Cisneros to do the right thing. I think that Cisneros didn't want to put his family through any more problems, and he just didn't want to deal with it, so he took the easy way out and killed himself.
When Cisneros dies, his confession dies with him, since it would be inadmissible in court. The prosecution team turns to forensic science to tie the other robbers to the crime. DNA evidence from the recovered water bottle and ski masks links Vigoa, Duarte, and Suarez to the crimes. The blood evidence recovered belonged to the now deceased Cisneros. While prosecutors prepare for trial, agents track down the remaining gunman, Luis Suarez, who fled Las Vegas and is hiding in Florida. FBI Special Agent Brett Shields.
We went down to Florida, discredited all his alibis, and then he was ultimately arrested for this crime.
In the fall of 2003, 5 years after their spree of robbery and murder began, Suarez, Duarte, and Vigoa go to trial in Las Vegas. Luis Suarez plea bargains to 1 count of armed robbery and receives a sentence of 6 to 15 years. Pedro Duarte takes his chances at trial and is convicted of 2 counts of attempted murder and other charges. He is sentenced to 16 to 70 years. In order to avoid the death penalty, Jose Vigoa pleads guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 44 other charges. He is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It took the combined efforts of 3 law enforcement agencies to bring this vicious gang of robbers to justice.
This case was solved not by the FBI, but by the cooperation between the FBI, Henderson Police Department, and Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. It was just a great feeling to be able to wrap up a case like this. Obviously, there were many victims, not just the security officers who were killed, but their families and the people inside the casinos and the people who were traumatized watching these armored car robberies go down and the casino robberies. There's a lot of people really shook up over this, and to take these guys out of the mix was a very good feeling.
And the next time someone threatens the safety of the citizens of Las Vegas, local police and the FBI will be there to stop them.